Lucy was my best friend for 15 years. We shared everything from college textbooks to life dreams. Her compassion made her an amazing social worker, touching countless lives. I never thought money would come between us, especially not $2 million from an inheritance no one saw coming. The sweet, caring Lucy I knew changed when that money landed in her account. What I never expected was how her inheritance would not only destroy our friendship but also reveal the darkness I kept hidden from everyone, including myself. Before I tell you how Lucy's inheritance destroyed our friendship but ultimately saved her life, drop a comment letting me know if you've ever seen money change someone you love, and do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories that might just save your relationships. I met Lucy during our sophomore year at Washington State University. I was 20, struggling through business classes while she was excelling in social work. We became study partners after being paired for a general education project. Something about her genuine smile and determined attitude drew me in immediately. Lucy came from a modest background in Spokane. Her father worked at a paper mill, and her mother was an elementary school teacher. They instilled in her a strong work ethic and compassion for others. Lucy worked 2 part-time jobs while maintaining a 3.8 gigapascals. I admired her resilience and dedication. Our friendship solidified during spring break of junior year when both of us stayed on campus. Most students had gone home or to beach destinations, but Lucy needed to work, and I was avoiding my complicated family situation back in Portland. We spent evenings watching old movies, sharing cheap takeout, and talking about our dreams. She wanted to help vulnerable populations while I aimed for financial success. After graduation, I landed a job at a financial advisory firm in Seattle. Lucy found work at a community center in the same city. Despite our different career paths, we maintained our close friendship. Every Sunday morning, we met for brunch at a small cafe near Pike Place Market. It became our weekly ritual, a time to catch up and support each other through career challenges and relationship dramas. During holidays, Lucy and I created our own traditions. Neither of us had ideal family situations to return to, so we became each other's chosen family. For Thanksgiving, we volunteered at homeless shelters before enjoying a small dinner together. At Christmas, we exchanged thoughtful gifts and watched holiday classics. These moments cemented our bond. 5 years into our post-college lives, Lucy mentioned an elderly client named Margaret, who had become special to her. Margaret was 82, had no living relatives, and had formed a strong connection with Lucy during weekly counseling sessions at the community center. She reminds me of the grandmother I never had. Lucy told me one Sunday, her eyes bright with affection. She has so many amazing stories about traveling the world as a photojournalist. As months passed, Margaret's health declined. Lucy began visiting her outside work hours, bringing groceries, organizing medication, and simply providing companionship. I worried Lucy was getting too attached to a client, crossing professional boundaries. "I know what you are thinking," she said when I cautiously brought it up, "but she has nobody else. The agency supervisor knows and approves. Margaret needs someone, and I can be that someone." I respected Lucy's compassion but worried about her inevitable heartbreak. When Margaret was moved to hospice care, Lucy visited daily. She would come to our brunches with red-rimmed eyes but never regretted her commitment. One rainy Tuesday, I received a call from Lucy. Her voice was shaking. Margaret had passed away peacefully in her sleep. I rushed to Lucy's apartment with comfort food and a shoulder to cry on. 2 weeks later, Lucy called again, this time her voice filled with disbelief. "Margaret left me money in her will," she whispered. "A lot of money." How much, I asked, expecting perhaps a few $1,000s. $2 million, Lucy replied, her voice hollow with shock. I nearly dropped my phone. That kind of money was life-changing. As a financial advisor, I immediately understood the implications, but Lucy seemed overwhelmed rather than excited. "I cannot take it," she said. I did not help her for money. "Of course you did not," I assured her. "Margaret knew that. This was her choice, her way of thanking you." Gradually, Lucy came to accept the inheritance as Margaret's final act of kindness. However, complications arose when distant relatives of Margaret suddenly appeared contesting the will. They claimed Lucy had manipulated an elderly woman for financial gain. "I never even knew about the money," Lucy cried during an emergency weeknight dinner at my apartment. "How can they say such things about me?" I offered to help navigate the financial aspects of her situation. As her friend who happened to be a financial advisor, it seemed natural. Lucy gratefully accepted. What neither of us realized was how money would change everything between us. 3 months after Margaret's death, the legal battle with her relatives ended when they failed to prove any manipulation. Lucy received the full inheritance, $2 million transferred into her account. She sat across from me at our usual brunch spot looking dazed. "I have never seen so many zeros in my bank account," she said. "I have no idea what to do with it all." As her friend and a financial professional, I suggested she take time to process before making any decisions. But internally, I had already started calculating. By this time in my career, I had developed a gambling problem that had spiraled out of control. I was $30,000 in debt to people who were not particularly patient about repayment. "You should consider diversifying," I told her casually the following week. "I know it is overwhelming, but that money needs to work for you." Lucy nodded, trusting me completely. "That makes sense. Where should I start?" My heart raced as I recognized the opportunity. There is a special investment fund my firm manages for high net worth individuals. Typically requires a minimum of $2 million, but I could get you in with 1.5. Lucy hesitated, her natural caution surfacing. "What kind of returns does it generate?" 15 to 20% annually. I lied smoothly. "Much better than standard market returns. Low risk, too, because of the diverse holdings." "That sounds too good to be true," Lucy said, her brow furrowing slightly. "Most of my social work clients who got scammed were promised unrealistic returns." Her comment stung, though she had no idea how close to the truth she was. I laughed it off, adopting my most professional tone. "This is different. These opportunities exist for wealthy clients who can meet high investment minimums. The average person never gets access to these funds." Lucy still seemed uncertain. "Can I think about it? Maybe get some information in writing?" "Of course," I replied, preparing fabricated documents that evening. Over the next 2 weeks, I skillfully addressed each of Lucy's concerns. I showed her falsified prospectuses and client testimonials. I named prominent people who supposedly invested with us. All lies, but delivered with the confidence that had helped me rise in my firm. What Lucy did not know was that my gambling addiction had grown worse after a major loss 6 months earlier. I had started small poker games with colleagues, but graduated to online betting and casino weekends in Las Vegas. I had borrowed from credit cards, taken loans, and was running out of options. Lucy eventually agreed to invest $1.5 million. I prepared the paperwork, creating a legitimate-looking but entirely fraudulent investment account. In reality, I diverted her funds through a complex series of transactions to pay my gambling debts and fund what I told myself would be my last few bets, which would win everything back. For 2 months, I provided Lucy with fake monthly statements showing modest gains. She was pleased, focused on her work, and beginning to enjoy small luxuries like a new car and a better apartment. We continued our Sunday brunches, though I found it increasingly difficult to meet her eyes. Then Lucy mentioned she had scheduled a meeting with a tax advisor to discuss implications of her investment income. "You do not need to do that," I said too quickly. "I can handle all tax questions." Lucy gave me a curious look. "I appreciate that, but I want a second opinion on my overall financial picture. Just being thorough." I nodded, trying to hide my panic. A competent tax advisor would immediately spot irregularities. 2 weeks later, Lucy canceled our brunch with a brief text. The next day, she appeared at my office without an appointment, her face pale and eyes hard. "I need to speak with you privately," she said to my receptionist loud enough that I heard from my office. I invited her, and closing the door behind her, she remained standing. "My tax advisor could not find any record of the investment fund you put my money into," she said without preamble. "When he tried contacting your firm about it, no one knew what he was talking about." "There must be some confusion," I began, my mouth dry. "It is a private vehicle, not widely known even within the firm." Lucy placed a folder on my desk. "I had him investigate further. There is no fund. The account number on my statements does not exist." Her voice cracked slightly. "Where is my money?" The question hung in the air between us. 15 years of friendship crashed down as I realized no lie would suffice. "Lucy, I can explain." I started, but she cut me off. "Did you steal from me?" Her direct question left no room for evasion. "I borrowed the money," I admitted, the word borrowed. A pathetic euphemism. I had gambling debts. I was going to pay you back with interest. Lucy staggered slightly, gripping the chair in front of her. How much is left? I could not meet her eyes. None. It is gone. The sound she made was not quite a sob, not quite a gasp, but something primal and wounded. 15 years of trust shattered in 5 minutes. You have 1 week, she said after a long silence. 1 week to return my money or I go to the police. She left without another word, leaving me staring at the door, wondering how everything had unraveled so completely. I spent the next 48 hours in a desperate panic. I called in favors, approached loan sharks, even contemplated selling my car and emptying my retirement account. Everything together barely reached $100,000, not even close to what I owed Lucy. In my desperation, I placed several large bets on sporting events, hoping for a miracle. I lost everything. Rock bottom finally had a literal meaning for me. Meanwhile, Lucy had been busy. I learned through mutual friends that she had reached out for advice and support. She discovered something that chilled me. I had done this before on a smaller scale to 2 junior colleagues who had quietly resigned rather than report me. Lucy was different. She began researching financial fraud protections and investor rights. She contacted the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, and the State Attorney General's office. She compiled documentation of every conversation, every fake statement, and every transfer instruction I had given her. 5 days after our confrontation, I received formal notice that I was under investigation for securities fraud. My firm placed me on immediate leave. My professional reputation was collapsing around me. That evening, I drove to Lucy's apartment, a mix of anger and desperation fueling me. How dare she report me? Did 15 years of friendship mean nothing? I conveniently ignored that I had already betrayed that friendship in the worst possible way. Lucy answered her door but blocked the entrance. You should not be here. You reported me. I hissed, keeping my voice down in the hallway. You could have given me more time. To do what she asked, her voice steady. Steal from someone else. Run away. Create more victims. I made a mistake, I pleaded. I have a problem. I need help, not prosecution. Lucy's expression softened slightly, but her resolve remained firm. Yes, you do need help. But you also need consequences. You committed a crime against me and others. I will be ruined, I said. My career, my reputation, everything I worked for. You ruined that yourself, she replied. Every time you chose gambling over honesty. Every time you stole instead of asking for help. I moved closer, my frustration mounting. You cannot do this to me. Step back, Lucy said, calmly holding up her phone. This entire conversation is being recorded, and my neighbor across the hall is watching. If you threaten me, that is another charge. I looked across and saw her neighbor standing in his doorway. Lucy had prepared for this confrontation. I realized she was no longer the trusting friend I could manipulate. Something had shifted fundamentally. What do you want from me? I asked, deflated. I want justice, she answered simply, for myself and your other victims. As I turned to leave, she added, if you cooperate fully with authorities, tell them everything. I will ask for leniency in sentencing. That is the only help I can offer you now. I left her building in a daze, finally understanding the magnitude of what I had done. The following week was a blur of legal meetings. My firm fired me after their internal investigation uncovered evidence of my previous fraudulent activities. The state revoked my financial advisor license. Criminal charges were filed. Through her methodical documentation and coordination with authorities, Lucy had built an airtight case. She had located my other victims and brought them forward. One had recordings of conversations where I admitted borrowing their money. Another had preserved emails containing my false promises of repayment. Most damaging was the trap Lucy had set during our last encounter at her apartment. My implicit threats and admissions captured on audio left my lawyer advising a plea deal as my only option. In a final strategic move that showed how completely Lucy had transformed from victim to advocate, she organized a formal meeting with prosecutors. She presented victim impact statements alongside a petition requesting that mandatory addiction treatment be part of any sentencing agreement. He stole our money and trust, Lucy stated in documents later shown to me by my lawyer. But his gambling addiction stole his ethics and judgment. Justice requires both punishment and rehabilitation. I accepted a plea deal: 3 years of house arrest, 5 years of probation, mandatory gambling, addiction treatment, and full restitution to all victims. The latter would take me decades to fulfill, but it was fair. Lucy recovered approximately 60% of her inheritance through asset seizure and insurance claims against my former firm. While I began serving my house arrest sentence, Lucy channeled her experience into action. Using the recovered portion of her inheritance, she established a nonprofit organization focused on financial literacy and fraud prevention. She partnered with community centers to develop programs specifically targeting vulnerable populations. The organization quickly gained recognition for its practical approach to complex financial issues. Lucy became a sought-after speaker at conferences addressing elder fraud and investment scams. Her personal story gave her unique credibility and impact. Through mutual friends, I heard that Lucy had also started a support group for victims of financial fraud. The group provided both emotional support and practical guidance for recovery. Many members reported that finding community in their shared experience was crucial to healing. While Lucy rebuilt her life and helped others, I focused on my recovery. The mandatory treatment program forced me to confront the addiction that had destroyed everything important to me. I attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings, 3 times weekly worked with a therapist specializing in addiction, and began the long process of making amends. 2 years into my house arrest, I received an unexpected letter from Lucy. I recognized her handwriting immediately on the envelope. Inside was a brief note: "I heard you have been consistent with your recovery program and restitution payments. I am glad. When you are ready, I would be willing to meet. Not as friends again, but as 2 people who shared an important lesson. Healing is possible for both victims and perpetrators of harm, though the paths look very different." She included a pamphlet for her organization and signed simply Lucy. I read the letter multiple times, searching for the anger I deserved, but finding instead a measured openness I had not earned. Lucy's capacity for growth continued to humble me. 6 months later, after completing 2.5 years of house arrest with perfect compliance, I was granted permission to attend a financial fraud prevention seminar. Lucy was the keynote speaker. From the back row, I watched her address a packed auditorium with confidence and compassion. "Financial fraud is unique," she told the audience, "because it damages both material security and human trust. The money can sometimes be recovered, but rebuilding trust requires a different kind of work." After the presentation, with my probation officer nearby, Lucy and I had our first face-to-face conversation in nearly 3 years. She looked well more confident than I remembered, with a calmness that came from inner strength rather than naivete. "Your organization is doing amazing work," I said awkwardly. "It is," she agreed without false modesty. "We have helped over 300 victims recover more than $4 million collectively." "I am sorry I said the words entirely inadequate. For everything." Lucy nodded, accepting, but not dismissing. "What are you doing with your lessons?" Her question surprised me. I had expected recrimination, not inquiry about my future. "I have been developing educational materials about addiction and fraud from the perpetrator's perspective," I explained. "My probation officer is helping me find appropriate venues to share them. Schools, community centers, anywhere people might benefit from hearing how seemingly small ethical compromises can spiral out of control." Lucy seemed to evaluate my sincerity. "That sounds worthwhile," she finally said. "If you stay committed to that path, let me know. There might be appropriate ways to incorporate your perspective in our prevention work eventually." It was more than I deserved, this small opening toward redemption. As we parted, Lucy shared one final observation. "You know, Margaret's money was meant to help people. In a way it never could have predicted it has. Through my organization, through the lessons we both learned, through the people now protected from similar fraud, nothing justifies what happened, but meaning can come from terrible things when we choose to grow." Today, 5 years after my betrayal, Lucy leads a nationally recognized financial literacy organization. She has a partner who supports her mission, close friends who value her wisdom, and the satisfaction of transforming her pain into purpose. I continue my recovery one day at a time. I work an ordinary job, live in a modest apartment, and spend my free time volunteering with addiction support groups and fraud prevention programs. Most of my income goes toward restitution payments that will continue for many more years. The wealth I once chased seems hollow compared to what I truly lost: integrity, trust, and a friendship that had been the best part of my life. Yet through losing everything, I gained the most important lesson. True wealth lies not in money, but in honesty, accountability, and the courage to face oneself. Lucy taught me that strength is not found in clever deceptions or financial success, but in standing firmly for what is right, even when the person harming you is someone you once loved. Her refusal to be a silent victim not only stopped my destructive path, but ultimately saved me from myself. Have you ever had to stand up to someone you cared about when they crossed a serious line? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to enforce are with those closest to us. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about friendship, betrayal, and redemption. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is an act of courage. Thank you for listening, and remember that true wealth comes from integrity, not your bank account.